You have been living two lives. There is the one that other people see, the one that shows up, says the right things, laughs at the right moments, the one that holds it together, that gets through the day. That looks from the outside perfectly fine. And then there is the one that sits alone in the car after work, engine off, not looking at your phone, not doing anything, just sitting in the only space where no one needs you to be a particular version of yourself. You clicked on this video because of one word. Not become, not how to. The word that stopped your thumb was always, because you have always wanted to be someone other than who you are pretending to be right now. Not someone famous, not someone extraordinary, just someone who feels real, someone solid, someone who walks into a room without first calculating which version of themselves that room requires. And I know what you carry. I know about the plans you made at 1 in the morning that didn't survive until Wednesday. I know about the journals that start on fire and end mid-sentence. The routines you built with so much hope that crumbled within a week. And I know what those collapses left behind, because each one deposited the same quiet message somewhere deep in your chest. Maybe I am just not the kind of person who can change. Maybe who I am right now is all there is. You are not lazy. I need you to hear that before we go any further. You are not lazy, and you are not broken, and you have not missed some window that closed while you were not paying attention. What you are is someone who has been trying to build themselves into a person worth being, over and over, using the wrong method entirely. And tonight, if you stay with me, I want to show you why every attempt failed, and why that failure is not what you think it is. It is not evidence that you are flawed. It is evidence of something much older and much more beautiful that has been trying to reach you for your entire life. You can feel it, can't you? Even now, even before I explain what I mean. But first I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, even if only to yourself. What if the reason you have never been able to become the person you have always wanted to be is that become was never the right word? Sit with that for a moment, because we use that word so casually. Become, as if you are raw material, as if you are a blank canvas that needs to be painted, as if who you are right now is a rough draft and the final version is somewhere out there in the future waiting for you to earn it through enough discipline, enough habits, enough perfect mornings in a row. But what if that entire framework is wrong? What if you are not a house that needs to be built, but a house that needs to be excavated? What if the person you have been chasing, the one you catch glimpses of in your best moments, in the rare conversations where you say exactly what you mean, in the mornings where you wake up and feel briefly, inexplicably whole, what if that person is not ahead of you? What if they are beneath you, buried, present, waiting? You have felt this, haven't you? Every wisdom tradition on earth, and I mean every single one, has arrived at the same conclusion through different doors. In the Buddhist teachings, they speak of your original nature, already complete, already luminous, obscured only by misidentification. You suffer not because something is missing, but because you have mistaken the mask for the face. In the yogic tradition, they describe layers called kleshas, afflictions of fear, ego, and false attachment that accumulate over a lifetime and cover the true self, which has never once been disturbed. And Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who wrote philosophy by candlelight, while the world burned around him, he did not say, "Become a good man." He said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." He understood. The being is already available. The arguing, the planning, the endless preparation, that is the delay. You do not need to become someone new. You need to uncover someone ancient. The person you have always wanted to be is not a future version of you standing at the finish line of a self-improvement marathon. They are a buried version of you, present right now, covered over by years of conditioning, years of fear, and years of borrowed identities that were never yours to begin with. And the fact that you have never been able to reach them through force, through plans, through sheer willpower, that is not a sign that they do not exist. It is a sign that you have been using the wrong tools. You cannot build your way to something that is already built. You can only dig. Does this make sense? Stay with me, because there is a story I want to tell you, a true story, and I think by the end of it you will see yourself inside it. In the city of Bangkok, in the country of Thailand, there is a temple called Wat Trimit, and inside that temple sits one of the most extraordinary objects on earth. A Buddha statue, nearly 10 feet tall, made of solid gold, 5.5 tons of it, worth, by today's estimates, hundreds of millions of dollars. Visitors travel from across the world to stand before it. It is breathtaking. But here is what most people do not know. For nearly 200 years, no one had any idea the gold was there. Go back to the 1700s. Thailand, then called Siam, was under threat of invasion from the Burmese army. Monks at the monastery knew they had something precious, this golden Buddha, and they knew what the army would do if they found it: melt it down, destroy it, take it for themselves. So the monks made a decision. They covered the entire statue in plaster and clay, every inch of it, layer by layer, until it looked like nothing more than an ordinary stone Buddha, the kind you would find in any temple across Southeast Asia. Nothing worth stealing, nothing worth a second glance. And it worked. The army came. They saw a dull clay statue and moved on. But then something happened that no one planned for. The monks who had done the covering, the only people alive who knew what was underneath, they died. Perhaps in the invasion, perhaps in the years that followed. History does not record exactly how. What it records is the silence that came after. The knowledge simply vanished. And for generation after generation, people came to that temple and worshipped what they believed was a clay Buddha. They bowed before it, they cleaned it, they cared for it. And not one of them, not for 2 centuries, ever thought to ask what was underneath. Think about that. Hundreds of years, thousands of people, and the gold was right there the entire time. Now, 1957, the temple is being relocated. Workers bring in cranes to lift the heavy statue to its new home. They attach the cables, begin to lift, and the statue shifts. It is heavier than anyone expected. The crane strains, and as they set it down, a piece of the clay cracks and falls away. One of the monks notices. He comes back that night, alone, with a flashlight. He kneels down and shines the light into the gap in the surface, and what he sees stops him completely. A gleam, warm, unmistakable, gold. They began to remove the clay, piece by piece, layer by layer, and with every piece that fell away, more gold emerged. Not scattered flecks, not a thin gilded coating. Solid gold, all the way through. The statue had never been clay. It had only been covered. And the covering had been so complete, so convincing, that the whole world forgot what was really there. I want you to stay with that image. A flashlight shining into a crack, and gold staring back. Because here is what they do not print on the plaques at the temple. No one created the gold in 1957. No one improved the statue. No one added anything to it. The only thing that happened was that what had been covering it was removed. The gold had been there in 1700. It had been there in 1800. It had been there every single day that people walked past and saw nothing but clay. It did not need to be made worthy. It needed to be uncovered. and it was only uncovered because something cracked. Now I want you to hear what I am about to say, as if I am speaking only to you, because I am. You are that statue. Somewhere along the way, and for most of us it began so early we cannot even remember it starting, you were covered. Not by monks trying to protect you from an army, but by something just as powerful. By the expectations of the people who raised you. By the version of yourself that school required. By the performance your first heartbreak taught you was necessary. By every moment where you learned, consciously or not, that being fully yourself was not safe, not welcome, not enough. And so you did what those monks did. You covered your gold. You built a version of yourself that would not get rejected, would not be too much, would not be too little, and that version worked. It got you through. It kept you safe. But the people who built that covering, the version of you who made those decisions, they were children, they were teenagers. They were someone in survival mode who did not have time to think about what they were burying. And now, years later, you are still wearing the clay. You are still carrying the weight of a protection you no longer need. And you have been wearing it for so long that you have forgotten it is not your skin. You look at your life and you feel heavy, ordinary, stuck. And you think that heaviness means something is wrong with you. But you are not clay. You have never been clay. Every time you felt like you were pretending, every time you caught yourself performing and thought, this is not really me, you were right. That feeling was not a flaw in your character. It was your gold, pressing against the surface. It was the real you, knocking from the inside, saying, I am still here. I have always been here. Come find me. And those cracks you are so afraid of, the moments when the mask slips, when you cannot hold it together, when the surface breaks and something raw shows through, those are not your failures. Those are your flashlight moments. Those are the gaps where the light gets in and the gold finally becomes visible. Isn't it so? So if you are gold beneath clay, the question changes. It is no longer how do I become someone new? It is how do I stop being someone I am not? How do I remove what was never mine? And in my experience of watching people wrestle with this, I have come to see that the clay is not one layer, it is three. And each one must be seen clearly before it can fall away. The first layer is the clay of borrowed identity. This is the outermost layer, the one that was put on you before you had any say in the matter. It is the identity you absorbed from the world around you, what your parents expected, what your culture rewarded, what your earliest friendships required you to perform. You were told who to be before you were old enough to ask who you were. And those borrowed instructions became so familiar that you stopped recognizing them as borrowed. They just felt like you. But they are not you. They are clay. And here is the practice. Begin to notice where you perform. Pay attention, starting tonight, to the moments where you feel you are acting rather than being. Where does your voice change? In which rooms do you become someone smaller, or louder, or more agreeable than you actually are? Where do you say yes when everything inside you is saying no? Perhaps it is the voice you use with your manager, slightly higher, slightly more careful than the one you use when you are alone. Perhaps it is the opinion you swallowed at dinner last week because you calculated that saying it would cost more than silence. You know these moments. You live inside them every day. A great Stoic teacher once observed that we suffer not from events themselves, but from the judgments we carry about them, and most of those judgments were installed in us before we were old enough to examine them. The first act of freedom is simply noticing which thoughts are yours and which were given to you. You do not even have to change anything yet. Just notice. That alone begins to loosen the clay. And I want to give you something here. You are allowed to disappoint the version of you that other people built. You are allowed to outgrow the shape they made for you. That is not betrayal. That is remembering. The second layer is the clay of fear. This one is different because you put it there yourself, not from ignorance, but from wisdom. At some point in your life, you learned that being fully, openly yourself was dangerous. Maybe you were mocked for your enthusiasm. Maybe you were told you were too sensitive, too much, too intense. Maybe you loved someone completely, and they left and you decided, somewhere below the level of words, that you would never be that exposed again. And so you dimmed yourself, you pulled back. You built a version of you that was safe to show the world. And I want to be clear, that protection served you. It was intelligent. It kept you alive in a situation where being fully yourself felt threatening. Honor it. It did its job. But you are not a child anymore. And the threat that required you to hide, I want you to think about it gently. Look at your life as it is right now. Look at the people in it. Look at where you are. Is that threat still here? Or are you still covering yourself in clay to hide from an army that left 200 years ago? You know the answer to that, don't you? The practice for this layer is to name the fear beneath the pattern. Every self-limiting behavior is a protection against a specific fear. What are you afraid will happen if people see the real you? That they will leave? That they will laugh? That you will be too much? Name it. Say it out loud if you can. Fear that is named has already begun to dissolve. It is only fear that hides in the dark that controls you. You do not have to conquer the fear. You do not have to fight it. You simply have to see it clearly, and then ask yourself whether it is still true. Most of the time, you will find it is a child's fear living in an adult's body, and when you see that, something softens. The clay loosens. Now, the third layer. This is the most subtle and in many ways the most cruel, because it disguises itself as something good. I call it the clay of constant becoming. This is the belief that you must earn your true self, that one more book, one more course, one more morning routine, one more fresh start will finally get you there. This layer says you are not ready yet. Work harder, improve more, fix yourself first. Then, someday, you will deserve to be who you really are. Does this sound familiar? This is the cruelest layer because it looks like growth. It feels productive, but it is still clay. It is still something covering the gold and saying not yet. And it is the reason you have started and stopped so many times. A student once asked a teacher, "How long must I practice before I am free?" And the teacher said, "If you practice in order to become free, you will never be free. Freedom is not at the end of the road. It is the willingness to stop running." This is why the plans never worked. This is why the routines collapsed, not because you were weak, but because every plan you made was another layer of clay whispering, "You are not enough yet." You were trying to build your way to yourself, and building was the very thing keeping you buried. So here is the practice for this final layer, and it will sound almost too simple. Stop adding, not forever, just as an experiment. For one day, 1 week, instead of asking, "What do I need to become?" ask, "What can I stop pretending?" Instead of building another plan, another routine, another version of yourself, just be still and see what is already there when you stop covering it up. You have permission to be yourself before you feel you have earned it. You have permission to stop building. The clay does not fall away through force. It falls away through honesty. 3 layers, 3 kinds of clay, and beneath all of them, the same gold that has been there since the beginning. I want to go one step deeper with you now, because there is something that most people miss when they hear this teaching, and I do not want you to miss it tonight. The question that lingers, the doubt that remains even after the parable, even after the framework, is this: but what if there is no gold beneath my clay? What if I really am just ordinary? What if I dig and I find nothing? I understand that fear. But let me offer you another way to see it. Imagine a wave rising in the ocean, a small wave, and as it rises, it looks toward the shore and begins to panic because it knows what is coming. It will crash. It will disappear. It looks at the other waves, the tall ones, the powerful ones, and it thinks, I am just a small wave, and soon I will be nothing. And then an older wave drifts past and says something strange. It says, you are not a wave. You are the ocean pretending to be a wave for a little while. And the small wave says, but I feel like a wave. And the older wave says, of course you do. That is what the ocean feels like when it forgets itself. You are not a small, struggling identity trying to become something worthy. You are something vast that has temporarily forgotten its own nature. And the person you have always wanted to be is not a bigger, better wave. It is the moment you remember you are the ocean. Sit with that for a moment. There is no rush here. You have spent so many years rushing. Let this be still. Now I want to return to something hidden in the title that brought you here tonight. You want to become the person you have always wanted to be, and I want you to listen to that word again. Always. You have always wanted this. Not recently. Not sometimes. Always. For as long as you can remember, there has been a pull toward this version of yourself, a quiet, persistent gravity that has never let you rest. And most people hear that and feel ashamed. I have always wanted this, and I still have not done it. What is wrong with me? But listen more carefully. Always. A desire that is temporary is just a preference. A desire that is lifelong is recognition. You have not been chasing a fantasy for all these years. You have been remembering something. The gold has been calling to you through every moment of dissatisfaction, through every feeling of, this is not me, through every restless night when you could not explain what was missing. That longing was never a sign of failure. It was a sign of truth. It was the gold whispering through the clay. I am still here. Come find me. You have not been failing to become someone new for all these years. You have been remembering someone original, the one you were before the clay. And the fact that you could never stop longing for them, the fact that the ache never fully went away no matter how much you distracted yourself, that is not your weakness. That is your deepest proof. Take a breath with me here. Just one. Not to fix anything, not to change anything. Just to let what you are hearing settle somewhere deeper than your thinking mind. Whatever you are feeling right now, that is yours. Do not judge it. Do not try to understand it yet. Just feel it. Before you go, I want to say something directly to you. Not to everyone listening. To you, the person who is hearing this right now, in this moment, wherever you are. You came here tonight looking for how to become the person you have always wanted to be. And I hope now you understand why that search kept failing. You were looking ahead for someone who was always behind you, below you, inside you, covered but never gone. You are not starting from nothing. You are not starting over. You are not behind schedule. You are not broken, and you have never been broken. You are gold that forgot it was gold. And forgetting is not a sin. It is simply what happens when life covers you in clay and no one tells you to look beneath. But now you know. And knowing changes everything. Not because you will be transformed by morning. The clay does not fall in a single day, but because every crack is now a gift. Every moment of discomfort is the surface breaking open. Every time you feel the friction between who you are pretending to be and who you actually are, that is not something going wrong, that is something going right. That is the uncovering, already in motion. You are allowed to stop building yourself into someone worthy. You are allowed to simply be the person who has been waiting beneath the surface. Not when you are ready, not when you have earned it. Now. The monks in Bangkok did not create the gold, they simply stopped covering it. That is all I am asking of you. Stop covering your gold. You are not clay. You have never been clay. And the person you have always wanted to be is not a dream you keep failing to reach. They are a memory, the truest memory you have, and they are closer than your next breath. If this reached you tonight, leave the word gold in the comments, not for me, for yourself. Let it be the first small act of uncovering, the first crack in the clay where the light gets in. Go gently, go honestly, and go in gold. May you remember who you have always been. May you trust what you find beneath the surface. And may you walk into your life, starting now, not as someone trying to become whole, but as someone who finally remembers that they already are.